Very much for joining us on this conversation. We're going to be highlighting the Seattle Humane Society and Bret with that organization, who recently hosted their very first ever Over the Edge event. You'll hear a lot of their experiences, what they did, some aha moments, some things that they plan on doing better in the future. So, but unfortunately, we got to start off with me doing a little introduction into Over the Edge. You may have heard some of this already, but I just want to give you just some high-level background on our organization, what we've been doing over the last 10 years of existence and 800 events, and just give you a little bit of background. And let's go ahead and get started. So Over the Edge, we've safely executed, well, now it's over 800 events with over 53,000 participants, and I think we're right around, I believe it's close to 80 million at this point, raised and counting. We're very excited about that. We love the ability to be able to help our partners take their events to the next level, to raise a lot of extra money, but also increase an awful lot of awareness. So on average, Over the Edge events raise over 100K per event. I can tell you in 2017, our events averaged right around 110,000 per event. And that's being done with only about 68 participants on average. That's pretty low when you think about it. I know when I was doing fundraising events, if I was doing a run walk, I'd probably need 1,000 people to get up into six figures. If I was doing a dinner gala, probably 400 or 500 to get up there. Golf outing, maybe about 300. But our clients are achieving that with only 68 participants, which is a really nice thing to have. In addition to that, we're also attracting right around $230,000 in media valuation. If you're not sure what media valuation is, that's essentially about how much you'd have to spend in local ad space to get the same amount of market penetration as this event is giving you. So very, very significant. So I want to go over the process of what to expect when you're going through when you do become a new partner with Over the Edge. So really the first step is to apply. Now, what do I mean by apply? Over the Edge we only allow a certain number of events in a specific market. And the reason we do that is we want the event to be different, we want it to be unique, and we want it to be fresh. And so we don't want to overload a market. So the way we do this is that if we have a market that has only, let's say we have a license available there, we have this application process, which once you apply, and the application is really just telling us that you're really interested, you want to explore this further. And in doing so, we lock out that market for you while you're going through a due diligence period. There's no cost, there's no commitment to do so. And that gives you the time to go through, vet it out, talk to myself, really get down into the nitty-gritty on how the event works, and then you can make a good solid decision. The reason we do this is that we don't want you racing with another organization to try to hurry up and be the first one to say yes. When you rush, you make mistakes, and we don't want that. We want you to have the time to go through, look at it, decide if you want it, and if so, move forward. So that is the application process. Again, that takes you calling up whomever you've been speaking with, letting them know, hey, we really want to seriously look at this. Let's lock it down. And if after a couple of weeks you decide it's not something that you can do, appropriately, you just let us know, and then we move on to the next nonprofit in line. So let's just assume that you go ahead and decide that you want to move forward. The next step is securing a location. And this process, on average, can take about 3 months. But the first step is you letting us know which buildings you feel that you've got really solid connections with, whether it be through the organization, whether it be through your board and their relationships, whether it be through corporate relationships that you have. You give us a list of those buildings, we vet them out, we make sure that they have real solid potential, and then we let you know, okay, these buildings you can approach. You make the outreach to the buildings after we've given you best practices and messaging and materials, and you're essentially asking them if they'd be willing to sit down for a 30-minute call with us, you, and them. Then what happens is our folks who are responsible for finding these buildings and getting them to say yes, they will take on the rest of that conversation, providing them with all the technical aspects. They're discussing the insurance, liabilities. So they're handling the rest of that conversation and then getting them to sign an MOU. Again, we can't do it by ourselves, because if we were to just start cold calling buildings, that's like you cold calling donors. It doesn't work. We need your help to get us in the door, but then we really take it from there. As far as the insurance goes, this is something that we're providing the vast majority of. So as part of this event and the cost of the event, we provide a $10 million policy that's going to list you and the building owner as additionally insured. And what we're going to be covering with that is everything that has to do with the rappel. So from the time in which the participant comes into our staging area and they're starting to get on the gear to the time in which they take it off, that's all covered by us. You still need to carry your standard event rider like you do with any other event. And that is there really just to cover the aspects of the event that we don't have direct control over. For example, you set up a table in the building plaza and you're handing out information to passersby, and a wind gust blows it into the street and it causes an auto accident. Well, our insurance won't cover that because it had nothing to do with us. That was your responsibility. So you still need to carry your standard event rider, but you should know what that cost is. You deal with those all the time with all of your other events. Now, the event planning is where the fun really starts to begin. That's where you are going to be doing your recruitment, working on your marketing plan, doing all the things that you typically need to do with planning an event. But just know that we are going to be there to support you throughout that process. We have a team of client experience managers who are really going to be your guides. They're going to have regularly scheduled calls planned with you, where you'll be, okay, now we're into this phase, this is what needs to be done, where are you, what sort of support are you looking for, what sort of questions do you have. They're going to give you access to all of our materials. We have a members area of the website where you can go in, you can get all of our templates, our best practices, there's all sorts of guides. Gosh, there's an awful lot of materials that are available to you in the members area of the website that we do encourage you to take advantage of. In addition to that, we have a series of webinars called Over the Edge University. And Over the Edge University is really it's really an engaged conversation where different nonprofits from across the country are coming in to specific calls or webinars that have all kinds of interesting topics, like how to keep your board engaged, how to utilize fundraising platforms, how to get donors to participants to raise more than just the minimum. So all of these things are part of it. We don't just leave you out in the open once you say yes to the event. So that's all there. Event execution. That's where the rubber meets the road. This is a 2-day event. Your first day is where your media and VIPs get to go over the edge. They start in the afternoon. And then your second day is where all of your participants go over the edge. We separate them out because the media can be a little bit, the media and VIPs can be a little bit high maintenance, and they take extra time on the rope. And you don't want to do that on your main event day, where hopefully you have a tight schedule and you can't really take the extra time, because that'll start to eat up your rappelling slots. But that's where all these participants who have raised a minimum amount of money, what we recommend is a minimum of $1,000. They've raised that amount and they get to go over. Now, I know some groups are a little leery, thinking, oh gosh, our people can't raise $1,000. But if you look at the averages I gave you earlier, that 110,000 last year was raised with an average of 68 participants. Now, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I know 68 times 1,000 is only 68,000. So how are they hitting 110? Well, sponsorship is in there, yes, but you also have an awful lot of people who are raising more than just the minimum. And I think when you hear Bret talk about what their minimums are, you'll realize that this is very, very possible. And then it's really planning for the next year. There are lots of different steps that we do provide you and best practices that you can do in year one that can help you to make year two a raging success. Lots of different things that you can do to make that happen. We're going to give you those best practices, and I can tell you that when we look at the numbers from a first-year client all the way up to a client that's got 5 years and more underneath their belt, we see the numbers, the amount of money increase with each subsequent year. So we know this event does have longevity. Vast majority of our clients come back after they've hosted. This is a relationship that we want to have with you, and we want to grow it. We want you to grow your fundraising, and that's what we see the vast majority of the time. So that's really the preamble from me. I want to get into really the rock star of the show, and that's Bret from Seattle Humane. Bret, I'll let you introduce yourself, talk about your organization and the scope of what you're doing, and we'll get started.
I'm the Special Events and Corporate Relations Manager for Seattle Humane. And I'm responsible for a whole lot of things here throughout the year. But putting on 2 signature events was the main responsibility. So we do a fundraising gala, and then we needed something new and fresh for this year. And I had heard about Over the Edge and thought that's something we need to look into. So that brought us here. And then for anyone that hasn't heard of us, we are a standalone shelter over in Seattle, Washington. We do companion animals, so cats and dogs and sometimes critters. And we transfer from about 15 states around the country and sometimes other countries if needed in times of crisis. And we adopt out about 7,000 to 8,000 animals a year. So we consider ourselves a pretty successful animal shelter here. Is that good? There we go. So let's see. There we go. So when you're looking at the slide that's on the screen, we fit right into that average for amount raised. As you can see, we did just shy of $113,000. But we, if you notice, had a lot fewer participants. And the reason for that is that when we got in and we actually got our building on board, it turns out our building is 42 stories tall. And given the amount of time that it takes for someone to start at the top and get to the bottom, there wasn't enough time to be able to get more participants down, or many more than that. So because of that, we didn't feel we could raise enough money by doing the $1,000 minimum to really, hit our cost of fundraising. So we actually have a $2,500 minimum fundraising amount to be able to participate in our event. But as Kevin said, almost every single person that participated raised over the $2,500. Our top fundraiser earning $7,676. As you can see, our to try to tie this event into animal welfare, we branded this Mission Impossible and set our little mascot as Palm Cruise, because animal people like a good pun. And so we used him throughout our branding. to try to help sell the event. We referred to our edgers as stunt people. So we kind of played along with the movie Mission Impossible theme when we could. Yeah.
Bret, by the way, I'm sorry. This is probably one of the more creative things I've seen. When I saw this, I was just loving it. And Palm Cruise is excellent. I just that little dog is great. All
That
right.
was a fun photo shoot.
Oh, I bet. I bet. I don't know how you got him to sit like that, but yeah, that's excellent. All right, Bret, why don't you go ahead and continue on down here with your shortened time frame and everything else.
All right, yeah. So due to the timing of our gala, which is a monstrous event, um, we got Over the Edge launched just before our gala, which only gave our participants about 2 months till event day. We had a small team working on it, and so we were pretty focused trying to get this done. 2 staff and 3 committee members that comprised most of the time spent on the event. And due to that, it really kind of concentrated everything. And I know we'll get into this in a minute when we talk about aha moments, but I would definitely not go any less than 2 months. Let me just put it that way.
Right. Just so everybody knows, the official Over the Edge recommendation for amount of time in which you say yes until you actually host is 8 months. so yeah, definitely
Yes.
definitely an abridged timeline.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say, I mean, I started on this November of last year. But it was just me organizing contracts, insurance, working with my board to find a building. So I was the main person for several months, putting a few hours in each week, getting everything set up. And then when I brought my committee together and we really launched, I would say we had about 3.5 months total. So it definitely felt like a shortened time frame, but we were still able to pull off an incredibly successful event. So I can only imagine next year what we can do beyond that with more time. So yeah, in terms of the amount of time that we spent planning, I would say for myself, for those first couple of months, it was about 5 to 6 hours, a lot of email, a handful of meetings in person with our real estate and building people, just kind of getting things geared up and ready to go. And then as soon as we launched, there were 2 of us who were spending about half of the week each week, really focused specifically on our Mission Impossible event. It was very possible for us to keep up with everything else we were doing here at the shelter, all the other planning and meetings and everything else. So it's very possible to put this event together and still maintain all the other aspects of a full-time position wherever organization you are. Our board, thankfully, really loved this concept. They love this event. We had 2 of our board members that participated, including our board chair. And then another way that they tied in, besides the building, I should say, because we did use a board connection to find a building, was that we went to the board and said, I know many of you are not interested in rappelling down the side of a skyscraper, but we have some staff members who could really use your support. And so we wondered if they would be willing to put their networks behind them and help them to fundraise as stunt doubles, which they both did. And both of those staff members, combined with the efforts of the board, raised $7,000 total between the 2 of them. So they both went over the $2,500 raised minimum. Yeah, it was awesome. In regards to recruitment efforts, being the first time and not sure kind of how our animal people who had never seen an event like this done from us before were gonna latch on. We did a lot of word of mouth, and we found a few ambassadors right at the beginning who were super excited, willing to talk about it, share it to their social media networks, including two different news anchors in town who are friends and kind of challenged each other. And all the buzz around that helped us to actually sign up additional people, most of which who were not part of our donor base or our network going into the event. So that's a huge advantage to us to get new people to hear our mission, find out more about what we do, and speak about that with their own networks, which only grows things wider. In addition to the two television folk, we also had a guy from one of our local radio stations who again was willing to talk about it on air, help us to work out a really good media buy with his station, which actually led to additional signups for participants. So really engaging your local media is really key, I think, to getting out and getting that message out there.
Yeah, Bret, you had something really interesting happen at your event that we saw happening live. It got shared with us. Could you go into the two radio personalities, I think they were radio, who came in and they were doing Facebook Live? I think that was really popular.
Yeah, oh, it was awesome. So that was actually our two news anchors. One does weather and one does special interest stories. And they got on Facebook Live, and they were pretty much on from when they got to the staging room until it got time to take them up to the roof, because cell phones aren't allowed up there. And they were talking about the experience. They were psyching each other up, and people were coming on. They were commenting. They were really excited about the fact that they got to do this. And then we had one of our own people from Seattle Humane on Facebook Live on the roof, who was able to then pick up the story once they got to the roof, and people could go onto our channel and actually watch them, get clipped in, step on the ledge, and then start their rappel. And those are some of the best moments to watch.
Yeah, I think they had over 20,000 views,
Yeah,
which
it was crazy.
which is just amazing. It's not often that you get that many people that actually have to. It's one thing to do a media buy. It's another thing to have 20,000 people click and then watch. And they were really, really engaging. It was a great piece. I was mesmerized by it. It was awesome.
It was fun to, yeah.
There we go. So,
Oh, and well, that's me.
oh, that's you.
That's me.
Oh, that's great. I just picked a random photo from the photos that you sent. That's amazing.
That's the happiest I looked.
Yeah, well, if you looked any happier, that would be pretty amazing.
Excellent. So yes, as you can see, $2,500 minimum raised per participant. One thing that we had the ability to do based on when our gala was is that we did a VIP rappel that we sold in our live auction. And looking back, I think we could make that an even more VIP experience. But what we did is we just said, you're going to come in on the media day, along with our Q13 news anchors and radio guys, and get a chance to be the first people for our entire event who get to rappel. And that went in our live auction twice for $7,500. So we started our fundraising once we launched with $15,000 already raised, which is huge to us. And that's something that we absolutely plan to do again next year. Was there something else, Kevin?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. Uh, Another thing, almost half of our participants that supported us are were brand new to us, and that's both from the participants and a lot of our donors that supported them in this event. So it was a really great way to reach a new network, new demographics, possibly, and really grow your mission, which I know for Over the Edge events is really, really wide. All sorts of different organizations coming together doing one event, and it's able to help propel your message further.
Well, one thing I'll add there real quick, Brett, is that the average that we see being first-time money donors from all of our clients is right around 55%. So you're very close to that, but across the board, we see an awful large number of participants being first-time donors, which tells you that when people see this out there, they pay attention. It grabs their attention because it is so different than all the other normal things that are available to them. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing that we did, in addition to the Facebook Live on the roof, was we staged a photographer, one at the top and then one down at the bottom. And we had a third I'll get into in a second. Um, but the best thing about that is that when people are up on the roof and they're interacting with the Over the Edge staff and they're getting their instructions, it's great to actually see the evidence of them calming down, feeling more secure about what they're going to do, and then getting ready to tackle the rappel. So you see the determination on their faces, you see the excitement, still a lot of nervousness, and we got some great shots up there. But then down at the bottom, the photographer was catching people's faces when they hit the ground. And sorry, I'm not going to say hit the ground, I'm going to say finished their rappel.
That's great.
Yeah, when they got down there, um, you could see how proud they were of what they just did. It's a huge accomplishment. It's a lot of physical work to work from the top to the bottom, and the look on people's faces was priceless. And some of those photos are going to go ahead to be ones that we're going to use for all of our media this next time around. And then we were additionally lucky enough to have our staging room be in a conference room that windows looked out right over where the repellers came down. And so as they were coming by on the 31st floor, they stopped on the ropes and let us get some photos there, which is what this photo of me is. And what you see in the background is our Ferris wheel that's down on the pier. So I'm on that street, I'm 31 floors up in the air. Who knows when you get down to the water? So we got amazing views, and it also gave the propellers a chance to know they're, a third of the way down.
That's great.
Yeah. In addition to that, with the next thing on the list is the incentive gift cards. This was something that we thought of just randomly, and like, you know what? Let's try to get some of those people re-engaged who had started fundraising and then things kind of slowed down a little bit. And so what I did is I just went to the group on Monday morning and I said, anyone that can raise an additional $500 and be it towards their goal, over their goal if they've already made it, whatever the case is, they're entered to win a gift certificate for a dinner for two at one of our nice restaurants downtown. And we had 7 different people that first week who actually hit that $500. We were able to give the gift card to someone and brought in money from some of those people who had been fundraising great right at the start, and then it had kind of tapered out. So they re-engaged their networks. They got the word spreading again about what they're fundraising for. And it helped a couple of them to get up and over that $2,500 goal. So we definitely will do that several times for 2019. And
That's
then,
great.
as you, yeah,
That's a
most
great
of
best
our
practice.
went beyond their goal. As you can see here in the photo, that is the look of someone that has just rappelled down 42 stories. And she was very nervous at the top, so it was awesome to see how excited she was at the bottom. Yeah. Safety is some. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Brad, I was just going to say this part right here is really just to kind of share the experience that Seattle Humane had with our technical team, not just the staff, but also the participants. So just to give a little bit of background there. Go ahead, Brad. I'm sorry.
No, of course. So 42 stories is really high. And a lot of the people who signed up for this event, when it was more of a theory and they hadn't actually seen it happen before, many of them were doing it because they had a fear they wanted to conquer. This was an experience that they wanted to have that you can't just get every day. And so when it came time for them to take the elevator up and walk up the stairs to the roof, people went white. They were just very nervous. And when you get to the top and you get on the roof, you are welcomed up there by the volunteers and the over the edge staff that are stationed. And they go through a safety briefing again. They give everyone the opportunity to clip in, and there's some kind of a demonstration option, I think, that happens on most of the events. We had a little side wall that went up, I would say about 10 feet, and it gave them the chance to clip in and just rest their feet against the wall and sit into the harness. Their butts were, only about a foot off the ground, but they could at least feel what the process was going to be like, and they could be talked through using the carabiners and everything. And by the time that they were done with that, you could just see the confidence come back. Several people were just kind of just itching and ready to go. And then the whole process, as from when they get to the roof to when they're clipped in and they start their rappel, the over the edge team is so good at being calm. They're knowledgeable. They kept everybody smiling and excited, and it really made a big difference to those folks enjoying that experience and not being so scared. And that's really important to us and to event retention. And I don't know if this happens everywhere, but we had every single person who was set with a time slot showed up and rappelled. And for us, that felt like a win.
It's rare that anybody backs out, but yeah, yeah, absolutely right.
We had our scaredy cat lounge ready just in case, but we didn't need it.
That's great.
Oh, man, I'm trying to see. So, and then, yeah, the other thing, again, when it comes to safety and enjoyment of the event, is that because the over the edge team set it up so well for us, and the ropes volunteers that they trained were the perfect group of people to be up there assisting and helping. And when the event went so smoothly for our participants, that is absolutely nothing but stories that we can use in coming years, and a great word of mouth, great testimonials to be able to sell this event to an even wider audience and get more people participating in years to come. Those aha moments. Yes, the first one, which I actually mentioned already, is having more time with your participants gives you more opportunity to spread the word, raise more money, help those people who are struggling to get to their goal find some creative ways to get there. Because you want everyone who's really trying to be able to hit their goal and do their rappel. And the second thing that ties in with time is permitting. So understanding when you go into the process what the permitting requirements are for your city is a really wise thing to do. For smaller events and things that I normally do, I only need 45 days with the city to lock everything in. But given that this was going to require us to take up some parking spaces and some sidewalk space, it turned into a different type of permit that they wanted 90 days. And I approached them about it at 50 days out. So they worked with me. We got everything together in time and it worked. But we paid a small fee for not giving enough time. There was a little bit more stress around making sure it could be done on time. And there were several things within the permit that could have held up the process that I didn't ask for because I didn't want us to not have a permit. So we didn't ask for the ability to have food trucks on site or amplified music or an announcer or anything like that just due to that permit. But now that I know going in next year, when I go to apply for that permit at 90 days out, I'm going to apply for everything I can get so that I can set up a really rockin' party down at the bottom of the landing zone.
There you go. By the way, this picture, probably one of the best faces I've seen in all of the photos. Tremendous.
And that's one of our committee members and sponsor. So.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, so that is it from both of our perspectives. Feel free to open up your mic if you can to ask questions if you'd like. I do have one, and while you're thinking about it, if you're too shy to say it out loud, I don't know too many nonprofit people that are that shy, but I'm going to go ahead and read a question that Laura Johnson sent to us. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that. Feel free to write in others if you have any others, but let me do this one for Laura first. Laura, essentially, I guess they had an event there previously, and at that point, one group raised money and then was giving it to others. And her question is that since they're no longer hosting, do you have marketing suggestions for new organizations to host the event where all proceeds will more than likely go to the said organization hosting? Laura, that happens in probably 99% of our events. 99% of our events is a nonprofit hosting for themselves. They're raising the money for themselves. So yes, do we have marketing suggestions? Absolutely. I can tell you probably one of the best ways to do marketing is number one, just through your base and through your board, reaching out to them, but getting the media engaged in the event is key. And you can hear just from what Bret mentioned, he has several different examples of how they engaged with the local press. I can tell you that a good number of in fact, the majority of our clients, they're not doing media buys. They're getting the press engaged. They have particularly radio going. If you can convince one of the radio announcers to go over the edge, they will talk about this for weeks in advance because they are shameless self-promoters. That's what they do. And particularly if it's a talk DJ type, that you can get engaged in this. So they will talk about it a lot. In fact, remember that a good percentage, well, the average is 55%, are first-time money donors, and a lot of that comes from the media and them sharing it. So it obviously works. Television is awesome to create awareness, and sometimes it can help with recruitment, but we see radio being better for recruitment, whereas TV seems to work really well with creating awareness for your mission, which we all know is an important thing for nonprofits because there's so many out there, and you want to raise your stock within the community. So I hope that answers your question, but in your situation, that is about 99% of our events. So I hope that answers. Any other questions that we could answer for you all? No? Well, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to try to unmute everybody again just to be sure. Oops. Never mind. That's not going to work. Let's see. Oh, hold on. What is the ballpark cost of this event? So I can tell you the event itself, boy, that's a big long answer. I can tell you the flat rate for this event is 29,900, and that's split up over multiple payments for the lifetime of during the entire planning process, which is 8 months. So you start off the $2,500 deposit. 90 days later, it's 9,000, and then the remainder is due on the day of the event, which is, like I said, at least 8 months down the road. That's what we look at. The ROIs are great, considering that the average is 110 being raised. So that's what we typically see. Bret, how much extra did you spend on the event just for the other ancillary pieces, would you say?
Yeah, sure. I actually have it to the dollar. We spent $10,866 on top of what we paid over the edge to do the event. But what I will say in that is that if you can get a radio station on board for free, that's the best way to do it. We wanted the airtime, and we had it built into our budget anyway. And so we spent $3,600 for our media buy. So if you can find a way around that, our cost would have been roughly 7,000, and you can manage that however you see fit.
What was the remaining 7,000? What was that for, Bret? How did that break down, would you say?
There were a fair amount of things. So we bought some swag and T-shirts that we gave to both our participants and our volunteers. We also had about $1,000 in permitting and the barricades that we needed to block off the street because ours was in the downtown core. So you have some of that built in there. And truly from there, it was kind of just various. We paid a third party group to do an additional website for us because ours was not functioning well. So things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, the permitting thing, that's definitely going to vary per community. It's not that's not incredibly common, but yeah, as soon as you start having to shut down lanes and things of that nature, you definitely do need to start getting city permits for sure. That's definitely a case by case basis. Excellent. Any other questions? Okay. Well, seeing none, here is what I will encourage everybody to do. Definitely feel free to, I'm sure you were contacted by somebody for you to hear about this, probably from Kaylee. Feel free to reply back to her if you're interested in getting a little bit deeper into the conversation, find out if it's going to be a good fit for your organization. Eventually you'll have a conversation with me where we'll get into really what we see in organizations who do really well to see if you have that same team dynamic. But we'll also talk about the dynamics in groups that don't do so well. So again, so you can see if you also have that dynamic. Again, we don't want anybody coming on if they're not going to be able to be successful. So we'll have a very frank and honest conversation. I was in the fundraising world for 20 years, so I'll definitely be able to speak from that perspective. And let us know if you'd like to apply and go through a due diligence period. Just know that we are making outreach to other nonprofits, probably in the same community, and it's not a guarantee that it's still available in your market, but when you initially received the communication, it was. So definitely reach out to us, let us know, and we'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions or get you on that application period. So with that, Bret, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Congratulations on your success, and we look forward to your event next year. I'm curious to know what your theme is going to be next year. Maybe it's the same. I don't know.
The sequel.
The sequel. Oh, there you go. There you go. That's right. Forgot there are several Mission Impossibles, so I could
Oh,
definitely
more
see
than I
that.
can count.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you further.
All right, thank you,
All
Kevin.
right. Bye, Bret.